In this video, we're going to look at the Protecting the Rights to Organize Act, also known as Pro Act, and how is this going to affect gig workers, particularly rideshare. Let's talk about it. Good morning, everyone. It's Joe time. And if you're new to the channel, I'm going to ask that you click my face in the corner to subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell icon. That way you'll know when I post new videos. This has been shaking up rideshare. People have been questioning how Pro Act is going to affect or influence the gig economy, particularly rideshare drivers. Well, Pro Act did pass the House, and we might be getting a little ahead of ourselves because it's unclear whether or not it's going to pass the Senate. The Senate right now is still controlled by Republicans. Pro Act is a Democrat-driven bill. But as we know, there are senators that tend to side more with Democrats than Republicans, such as Mitt Romney. So there's no telling. But right now, let's not put the cart before the horse, because there's a really good chance Pro Act may not even become law. But if it does, what is the impact on rideshare? Well, the biggest thing that we see in Pro Act is that it contains an ABC test. And the ABC test, I'm not going to delve into it too much because we have talked about this ad nauseum when we were engulfed with it in Proposition 22 in California. Basically, it has three criteria that employees or independent contractors have to meet in order to be deemed independent contractors. Otherwise, they may have to be made employees in order to continue to do the work they do. And it is the second component that typically is the little wrench in the works. And that's the one that says the worker is doing work outside the normal business of the employer. So with rideshare, clearly, if you're driving or you're delivering, that is the primary function of the rideshare companies. The companies like Uber and Lyft and Doordash and all of the others. So as such, if an ABC test is implemented nationwide, it would have a tremendous effect. But let's not jump the gun. Let's look at what the intent of Pro Act is. The real intent is aimed at collective bargaining. Now, lest you say that I am anti-union, let me put this out. I was a member of the union, dues-paying member, for 17 years. So I know a little bit about unions. And there's a thing, for those of you who are not familiar with unions, you have open shops and closed shops. Open shops typically allow you to join the union and work without a union. And closed shops, in order to work there, you must be a union member. And there are 27 states that are classified as right-to-work states. I came from one, Wisconsin. I'm living in one now, Florida. And right-to-work states say you are not required to pay dues to a union in order to work. Now, union members, this is a sticking point with them, and let me tell you why. They think that if there's a union and you choose not to join the union, but you are still an employee, that you get all the benefits of the union without having to pay. So for example, if the union negotiates wages, you come right along with them and you get that higher wage even though you didn't have to pay your union dues. And that may be a legitimate argument. But if that's the only thing that you think a union does, I think that you're selling the union short, or you're buying in to the argument. Is that the only thing the union does? I don't know. If this person that might be getting higher wages but they're not a member of the union, now maybe there's an accusation, or there is maybe they're being laid off or fired without cause, and they They no longer have union representation, and a union member does to go in on their behalf. So I think there's a lot more to a union than just negotiating wages. And Pro Act largely talks to negotiation, but the right to organize may be interpreted differently by different people. I think the big thing is, would the ABC test be applied nationally? Not necessarily. The language may be utilized by states in establishing whatever laws they have in order to conform to the Pro Act. If an ABC test was established in your state, it could, I think, be disastrous for rideshare workers. You saw what happened in California. Uber and Lyft put in so much money in defeating it, and they ended up defeating it. A lot of independent contractors were put out of work or severely limited to do their work due to AB5, and so a lot of those laws had to be amended. For example, the big one that always comes up are freelance writers. And freelance writers were limited to, I think, 35 pieces a year. And of course, writing is probably the primary focus of the organizations they write for. If they write for magazines, newspapers, whatever, publications, well, that's their primary function. So they fall right into that second component. So almost immediately, that would put freelance writers out of work, because the publication simply cannot afford to hire all the freelance writers as full-time employees. And I think Vox Media was a good example of that, where there was upheaval, and they ended up not using a lot. I don't want to get into that whole story, but they ended up not using a lot of freelance writers. Of course, they weren't all employed by the organization. So what would happen to rideshare? Well, rideshare obviously is not going to employ all of these workers. Now, you get a lot of these, and they're hardworking people. I'm going to use that vlogger, the rideshare vlogger down in Chicago as my example. The guy puts in like 70 hours a week, and he makes a lot of money, but he works on several platforms. Now, if you're going to be forced to employ to become an employer, and I suspect a state like Illinois, they tend to follow those things out. I'll bet that the Chicago legislators would be chomping at the bit to create an ABC rule. Now, so you're working for several. You're working for Doordash, Uber, Lyft, Amazon, whatever. Which one's going to employ you? And if you get employed by them, now you can't work for 2 or 3 or 4, and all that money that accumulates from different sources might dry up. So that would probably be one of my biggest concerns if Pro Act would lead to an ABC test. Now, it's not necessary. The language is in there, and I'm not an attorney, but it seems to me that it doesn't require that on a national level. But if an ABC test is adopted in your market, that's where I think some trouble could result. And it's really shameful that these legislators on a national level now that voted for this and put it forward didn't look and see what happened and what is still happening, what was happening in California, and what a disaster it was. I think it's bad law, not necessarily Pro Act, but anything with an ABC test is bad law. That language is in there. So we're going to have to really wait and see what happens. Nobody knows what the ultimate result is going to be. I don't think it's good. What do you think? Leave your comments down below. And by the way, stay tuned, because I have another video that's going to be coming out in a few days. We're going to be talking about this whole tipping situation, specifically in Uber Eats, and how I'm afraid that it probably won't create the downfall of Uber Eats, but it's going to drastically impact the way they operate. So that's going to be coming up. As always, I encourage you to like and share the videos. Leave your comments down below. If you haven't already, please subscribe by clicking my face in the corner. And don't forget to ring that bell icon. That way you'll know when I post new videos. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm Mark, and this is Mark's Travel Time.